I came here.
Blair Witch. Spooky. Spoopy. This game was okay. Started off a little slow. Kind of already knew that going in because I watched a little bit beforehand. But it just looked fun. It looked immersive. The nature. I wasn't always into Blair Witch, the movie, but the movies. Once I actually gave it a chance, I actually kind of liked it. Being the founder of found footage, I probably was more into Paranormal Activity first. With the more found footage movies I watched, it's actually a really cool, fun genre. And Blair Witch is kind of like the OG. I always knew it was like a good, scary, popular movie. The only reason why I didn't like it is because of that. It's like I don't really see what all the hype's about, but it's just cool. You never really... I don't know, once you give it a chance, it's... it's scary. You don't really see the monster. You don't really see the witch. You don't really... I mean, you kind of do and you don't. It is all very psychological. The Blair Witch remake I liked. That was pretty fun. The second one, I don't know. The second movie is kind of weird. But yeah, being Lionsgate, I love Lionsgate, Saw. I know there's a Saw game out there as well. Yeah, Blair Witch is it's cool. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's my favorite found footage movie, but because there's other cool ones like was it Apollo something? The one in space, Paranormal Activity, obviously. You know, there's one for every occasion. There's like a Exorcist one. There's probably an Alien one too. If I've seen it, I probably just forgot. So you kind of get a little bit of everything. It's pretty sweet. There's even one with like the Illuminati. I forgot what that one was called too. I think it's called The Conspiracy. Just the movie. But it's just so real. I remember when Paranormal Activity at the time, especially, I imagine Blair Witch. You know, it looks like a home movie. It's very believable. I was pretty young at the time, so I really didn't honestly know whether it was real or not. I could have guessed it was. That's what I honestly thought. But then when you think about it, it's like, well, it doesn't really make sense. Being turned into a movie, profitable, like, business-wise or whatever, the industry doesn't really add up. But, yeah, the fact that there's a Blair Witch game is pretty cool. It's very immersive. You're lost in the woods. Yeah, it's spooky. When I first watched some of it though, it inspired me to even play it. Because it's a licensed movie game. I probably would have eventually played it at some point anyway. I like horror games. But when I was originally watching it, it was like a confusing, dark time. Like, life was changing, things are different. Just watching playthroughs of the game was just, it was comforting. I was in like a dark, empty room. This is one out of a few games that kind of got me through some hard times. It was like very dark and mysterious and rainy in my room and in the game. And it was just something relatable because you kind of like get lost in it. It's kind of a weird way to cope with things like that. Like, you kind of go that route to really compensate or make up for the fact that, like, hey, things are happening. That's like a whole nother thing, but I don't know, it's the game, it's kind of special to me because it's one of only really a few titles overall, especially played from certain people that really kind of helped me when I needed it. I would have never thought I'd say that Blair Witch would have done that for me, but because of the fact that it's a game and, you know, it has playthroughs on YouTube and videos, and it really did a lot for me, so I'm pretty thankful. So I figured it was only fair to play it, stream it, make a review on it, whatever. Yeah, this wasn't anything like the movies, which I guess makes sense, right? It's a game. Because I don't really think it would have worked that way. It could have honestly been like a really cool like visual novel or something, to be honest, but yeah, the game itself, I'm not the biggest Blair Witch fan, but I just love kind of connecting it all, like the game, the movies, there's even YouTube videos of like the real Blair Witch, the real house that maybe it was inspired from, or something relatable along the lines. I've always loved watching like paranormal videos and paranormal investigations and all that, ghosts, spirits and demons and aliens and all that. Cause I believe it's real. I really do. I mean, maybe not in such a tangible, obvious, physical sort of like right in your face way, but yeah, for sure. The game came in VR. I unfortunately didn't play the VR version, but I can imagine it's really nice. And the nicer console you play it on, the nicer your monitor, like the game looks really good. I actually played it. It's weird, I originally played this in HDR, I came back to it and finished it eventually, but the HDR, it made the game so dark. Like, I couldn't see anything. It was kind of a bad experience, to be honest. Especially because it's a VR game, kind of like Resident Evil 7, it can be very blurry, a lot of motion blur. And they obviously did the whole cinematic thing where you're kind of bouncing around all over the place, you're tripping. The game can kind of make you a little dizzy. It's not the perfect, most highest budget. It's technically an indie game. Like, it's like literally under the indie section. Which is weird because like it definitely has a budget there, obviously, but you know, that's how movie games go, to be honest, so that's okay. But yeah, a few issues I had with it was the the visuals were just really kind of hurt my eyes, and the HDR was not helping. I eventually turned that off completely because I was messing up quite a few games I was playing at the time. When I recently got the newest monitor that I'm currently using, I was really curious about the HDR, and as nice as it is, it can kind of create problems too, because the darker games that I played, it just made things way too dark. I couldn't see anything. And then you're ruining it by messing around with the brightness, which kind of ruins the game. Especially when you're trying to output with HDR, it's not a good idea. So it's like the premium experience should be playing it on VR. And then if you're not, then you got HDR on, which just ruins it. It's really hard to like enjoy this game in the best way possible because there's kind of different ways to go about it, and because it's such a like it's very graphically demanding. It does look really good. It is very detailed. Like the lush nature and the foliage and the trees, plants, the grass, the skies. I wouldn't say the graphics itself or anything specifically, like the gameplay or the character models or whatever, but yeah, it looked great. I mean, that's all the game was you stuck in a forest, so it better look good, right? Yeah, the cutscenes are good.
In local news, there is still no sign of the 9-year-old Peter Shannon, who went missing on Saturday afternoon. The missing boy was last seen wearing a green t-shirt and a Baltimore Crows cap. Local authorities are organizing a search party in the Black Hills Forest.
They were pretty generous with the cutscenes, because it is a game movie. But, I felt like they were very far and few in between, too, because there was so many times where I just got lost. Like, I was running around the woods for hours, I didn't know what to do, how to do it. Like, the first day especially was super rough. And then I tried to come back to it the next day and get used to it. The second day is usually better. Like, you're learning the controls, your eyes are getting used to the visuals, whatever. It was still pretty rough. I had to come back actually a while when I originally, I want to say I originally started playing it at like the end of last October, last Halloween, because I was trying to squeeze it in there with some horror games throughout the month. And then it was just too much. I had to play something else because like it was just hurting. Which sucked too, because I was like low-key excited. It took me a long time to kind of just get to the game, but when I came back, that's when it actually got much easier. I was like, hey, I kind of know what I'm doing. I had to get used to it a little bit again. It was weird though, because where I got stuck at, which was very early in the game, unfortunately, I actually came back and I pretty much figured out what to do like immediately, which felt pretty good. But it's weird though, because where I got stuck at, I looked up something on YouTube, a playthrough. And from whatever this person was doing was way different than what I was able to do. Like, half the game felt kind of broke or like wouldn't work. Like, I remember this guy putting something in a radio. I never ended up even having to do that. I kind of did some completely offbeat thing. It must have been some sort of optional thing or something. I don't know. And it was so weird. Like, I was trying to watch the thing to get this thing to appear, to move on and get the clue that I need to advance and progress. Nothing worked until I like came back to it, and all of a sudden, like instantly, I was like, okay. And you never know if it's like, there's a few problems with this game. I just felt like some things were not working. The audio was really hard to get put together because it was so quiet. But you don't want to turn things down too much because you're really getting rid of all the nature, the noises, the bugs and birds and stuff like that. And it was so quiet most of the game that probably not a good idea to touch that too much. And then another thing is, I don't know if it was just me, like you can hear the main character talk, but then you'd be talking to someone and it's just nothing. Like, it's just subtitles. I'm like, where are the voices, man? Everything should have been voiced, especially because it's a movie game. Like, it's a weird thing to leave out. Like, I expect that kind of thing from like an anime game, but I just think it was broken. It just didn't make sense. I never really double checked to see if it was only just me that experienced that. During the cutscenes and some of the non-cutscene dialogue sections, there was some voice acting there coming from not only me, but the person on the receiving end as well. But half the time I was like, what? Where's all the voice acting, man? Hello? It was weird. So between the visuals, the dialogue, I don't think the game really gave you enough. Like, you do have to get used to it. Sure, there's somewhat of a learning curve. I mean, but that's just gonna come to you over time. But I just felt like I was getting stuck and I didn't know where to go when I was lost. And you could spend a really dumb amount of time just kind of wandering around. You might find some pictures laying around somewhere, some trash you can pick up, like the stupidest crap, dude. I don't know, like the game didn't help you out enough to like get you through it. And it's such a weird mix of like this AAA indie thing that I had trouble like knowing what I was playing. Like, is this a good quality, solid game? Good gameplay, visuals, audio, everything? No, absolutely not. However, the experience of it alone, you know, the woods, the ending, getting, like, even completing the game alone is I think, impressive in my opinion. Because that's the thing, it was one of many games, actually, that I start up and I get lost, I'm confused, I'm literally, like, my eyes are hurting, I'm getting a headache. You know, things just are not working out. They're not flowing well. We're not going from A to B. There's no direction. There's no guidance. There's no... It is a survival horror game, so you do have to kind of, like, obviously use your head a little bit and make some good choices and decisions and have good judgment. But it's not like the same way, like, in Resident Evil or, like, pretty much any other horror go-to game that there would be. It really did play and feel like an indie game, which is very unfortunate because, like, I hate when games like that always have the potential to be so much more than they actually are, and it just frustrates me. So I was like, hey, if you're gonna be putting these big popular titles out there, these brands and franchises, and very well known all around the world, globally, whatever, put some goddamn money into it, man. Make a good game. They always, like, these movie games are always some, like, random studio they hire, or they're never done well, and it kind of pisses me off. Because that's half the fun for me. Like, I'm tired of movie games, or movies from games, games from movies. They always get, like, a bad reputation. And it's like, dude, that's what I love about it, is like, because I love movies. I've always grown up with movies and watching them, and pretty cultured, really, I think. And, I know it's a shame you have these games to kind of further push that along and express that part of you that likes these things and gets to explore it in a different way, in a different world, and get more context and more lore and more story, more character development, whatever. It's just more of the same thing, which should be a good thing, but half the time it doesn't really end up being that way. I mean, Blair Witch has been around since forever, since I could remember. I might even remember it from VHS, which is kind of weird, but just funny because it makes sense because of the movie. It's all gritty, staticky. It was obviously nice seeing it really heavily featured in Scary Movie. I think one part about the movie, though, was the snot coming out of the nose. Was pretty funny. Not really funny, but just like, this is gross, dude. There was even like a Family Guy skit or something that kind of made fun of that. Or no, it was probably a Scary Movie I'm thinking of, honestly. Like that section, that skit. But yeah. Just funny talking about it now because I just realized there's also a Paranormal Activity game as well. Coincidence? We're kind of getting games from these like found footage movies that end up being like completely different. Like, it's a game. You have to come up with some kind of offbeat story, or, you know, the writing. And it worked here. It's really engaging from like the first 5 minutes. Like you're kind of, it's just a very different game. Like, this isn't like most games you'd probably end up playing where it's like, oh, it's heavily story related. It's a bunch of combat, this and that. Kind of had an Alan Wake vibe to it, even though I've never played that, but just the flashlight stuff and kind of have some Outlast vibes with the camcorder and I don't know, there's definitely a lot to get out of the game. I don't know about in all the best ways, but they kind of somehow packed enough in it to make it work the way that it did, and it wasn't a super terrible, horrible experience. It was like 50-50, I guess, really. Yeah, the gameplay is cool.
Well, it looks like they've started without us, huh? Okay, let's get moving.
Yeah, the navigation was hard. The controls aren't the best. Oh, another issue. Unfortunately, there's quite a bit of issues. Was saving. It's weird because you try to save the game and you make it to a certain point. You're like, well, there's a manual save, right? Okay, but it'll straight up tell you like, hey, if you save, we're gonna like take you, if you reload and come back, we're gonna take you like way before you even save. So there's probably a lot of stuff you're gonna have to redo. And if it happens to not be a big deal, fine, but it's kind of bullshit. It's like, dude, if you're gonna give me a save button, let me save. What's the point of it then? It's like no better than an autosave. And autosaves can either be really good or really bad. So as good as the game was, there was just too many, I had way too many problems. But I wanted to complete it. I didn't want to just start it, not go further. I was willing to even look up what to do, as much as I hate doing that, depending on walkthroughs and playthroughs and tutorials and guides and all that. But sometimes you just get so stuck, and it's such a shame to like throw a game away completely. You spent the money on it, it's in your storage, it's taking up space, it's something to play out of whatever it is that you have. I just felt like it was a good enough game where I didn't want to just kind of completely leave it alone and forget about it, because I love to complete games even if it kills me. No matter how frustrated or how mad or upset or anxious or sad or I'm like, hey, you know what? I want to start a game and finish it. That's it. I'm happy. I don't care what it is. Well, I do care, but like there's some exceptions, sure, depending on the game, but this was one of those games where it's like you just got to get through it. Just figure it out. It wasn't that hard to play. You're not really doing anything half the time. You're wandering around. That's about it. It's like the whole game. It's pretty much a walk through the woods simulator. Yeah, I may not have experienced it in the way that it was natively purposely meant to be, like VR. But even non-VR is fine. Like it's no different than like a 2D, 3D movie. It's, you know, the 2D still looks great. Like it unfortunately suffers a little bit because of the 3D, which the same thing carries over here. But I mean, it's still a good game nonetheless. But I guess the biggest thing to take out of a lot of this is that you just got to give it a minute, give it a day, hell, give it a week. If it's frustrating. I mean, this is just my experience, like it could be different for anybody. I think it's worth it though. Like it felt good for it to pay off. I wouldn't say it was satisfying in like a good way, but just the fact that like, hey, that was really hard and difficult. The game's not hard, it's just playing it, and those type of games are so rough for me because I love everything about the game, the aesthetics, the world, the atmosphere, the vibes, but then if there's bad gameplay, I get really disinterested pretty quickly. Because it's like that is the way you are meant to get through these games, and if you're kind of suffering and constantly going up against the wall and the entire way, that's not good. Like I try to have a rule like, hey, if shit's not working out, dude, forget it. I'll either rage quit completely, come back, something. It's always something. It's a hard boss, it's losing currency, it's I'm getting stuck, I lost progress, I died for no reason, 1 HP, I barely lost. It's always something. And, you know, I kind of get it. There's really no excuses. Like, hey, no one's forcing me to play this game. That's just life in general. I don't think that should be part of video games necessarily, but just that whole simulated world going up against all odds. You're in a pre-built, pre-scripted universe that's trying to constantly test you and push you, and I get it. But, you know, when you're trusting random strangers from a random studio, who knows where in the world, that made a game, and you know it works out well for you as an individual person and who you are, who you've become, and that's not always going to add up. Like, not every game is for everybody, so, and that's unfortunate too, because it's like these things that we like are entrusted to these people that end up getting the licenses or whatever to make the things that we like. Especially something where you can relate it to movies and whatever else. You know, there's a certain, like, expectancy there, and it's just a shame to see that fall flat, but to be fair, these kind of games are only for the fans anyway. Like, someone that didn't know anything about Blair Witch, they probably would have never even thought twice about playing it. Although it is a horror game that does stand out, to be fair, because, like, there's only so many horror games out there, first of all. You know, second of all, it's got a really cool black and red aesthetic. Blair Witch sounds cool. You may or may not even know what that is, or... The logo looks cool. I love the sticks and it's just so, like... It's just creepy. And whether it, like, actually scares me or not, it's more of, like... You know, and if you're someone who, like, has to put yourself... Like, oh, what if this was real? What if I was actually there? Oh my god. I think that's fun to do, but it can kind of ruin it too, because you're focusing on that so much to a point where... I think you're just kind of confusing yourself. Like, find a nice middle ground there where you're like, hey, I know I'm just watching or playing this, but I'm also kind of imagining what it's like to actually live in it too. I can imagine that was the biggest reason for this game, was for that exact kind of, like, concept and that mentality, that headspace of, like, you know, this could be you. You're in the middle of the woods, who knows? I'd love things that take place in the middle of nature, because you don't know what's out there. It's scary. Intriguing and cool and interesting, but scary. Which is kind of ironic, because it's like, oh, nature and, you know, the trees, and it's so cool, and then next thing you know, there's, like, things trying to eat you or whatever. I don't know, it's pretty great in its own weird little way. Yeah, game had some problems. I was just more relieved to get it done. I wasn't even like, oh my god, I really enjoyed that, and it made me so happy, and I was so thrilled and excited, and it was more just like, okay, I'm done, moving on, next game. And but yeah, it had elements from the movie that really made it what it is. It really keeps true to its flavor and its formula. Also, the ending did drag on a bit, but that's just most games. Whatever, right? Just kind of deal with it. Yeah, Blair Witch. Ooh.